Welcome to the TreeHouse Live.
Coming at you live
From
the
TreeHouse with Jacob Bruner
live and
Andrew Sanchez. So, today we have a number of topics to talk about. We'll be talking about drones later on in the episode.
yes.
Hence the So, we had a good weekend this weekend. I hope everyone else did. Collage was this weekend.
The first of two.
The first of two, yes.
A smashing success, if I can say so myself.
What are some of the highlights, Jacob?
Okay. I wish I had the program with me because I can't remember the name of it. But there was, maybe you guys remember, but this piano trio. I'm a total harmony nerd, so this one just caught my attention because
It was Congo something.
Congo?
Congo something. I can't remember what.
The piano trio? Oh, like the da 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 da.
Yeah.
Da. So it had like these just regular, really like pleasing melodies, but the harmony of it was like very, very, very messed up, and that is like right up my alley. So it was killing. What about you, Andrew?
Dude, I liked the add-on Bach.
Oh, that was so good. Well, tell them about it.
So like, the Dr. Salmon, the pianist, John Salmon, he was playing this Bach. I forget which Bach piece it was. He was playing this Bach piece on the piano, and just how it is normally. And he had a rhythm section with him, plus I think like three other horns.
Three
saxophones.
Mm-hmm. And drum and bass.
Drum and bass, yeah. And so, after he played the Bach, he like did a little to set up what was to come next, and then boom, it was the same Bach piece, jazzified, and it was the coolest thing. It makes you like the line. Yeah, exactly. The line between classical and jazz. There might as well be no line.
In that arrangement, there definitely was no line, especially because, like, because when the rhythm section came in, I believe that's the first thing that happened after he played that transition. You got, like, jazz drums and bass with just Bach over top of it. So it's just like, dum, 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 dum. It's just like, this is how harmony works.
Exactly.
And over top, just like, do-do-do-do-do-do. Dude, that piece was, when he was playing by himself, it was so beautiful.
It was gorgeous, dude. John Salmon, the way he articulates and phrases things on the piano is so sophisticated and mature.
Does he have, like, I'm sure he has CDs, right?
Oh, yeah.
I need to get up to some
He has some
CDs.
stuff on Spotify. It's killing. It's usually, I think he has a CD where it's two pianos, I think. And then he also has a CD where it's him doing solo piano called Salmon is a Jumpin'.
I want to hear that.
It's pretty killer, dude. We'll put a link in the description.
John Salmon.
But if you didn't get a chance to check it out, this past weekend we will be doing another performance of the same concert in Maimandi Concert Hall in Raleigh, North Carolina, at 8 p.m., I believe.
Mm-hmm. And for those who don't know, this is the regular venue for the North Carolina Symphony, so kind of a big deal.
So you should definitely check it out. It'll be beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Big old hurricane coming through.
So we got a big old hurricane coming through. We
yes.
already had one big old hurricane coming through, and now we got another big old hurricane coming through. Andrew, what are your thoughts on this?
So I'm from the Outer Banks of North Carolina,
Hey, now.
which we get hurricanes all the time. And as this summer was coming to an end, I was thinking, man, we didn't have any hurricanes hit the Outer Banks this summer. And what didn't you know? Now we have a hurricane coming. So I've been growing up with getting hit by hurricanes. And so I'm kind of, I'm I don't want to say excited, but I guess I would say I'm a little anxious to see the effects, particularly on my hometown of the Outer Banks, what Hurricane Irma will do. I know it might be coming to Greensboro too.
Yeah, UNCG said depending on what happens, they may cancel school. But I want to ask you about something that kind of relates to hurricanes and the Outer Banks and just all that related stuff.
Sure.
All the time the weather's like destroying beachfront property, but every time it's destroyed, they just build it again.
You're right.
So like, what from a local perspective, what is going on with that? Because it seems like the stupidest idea ever.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, of course, but like, so I know it's the rich people building the houses.
Well, okay. The thing is, particularly with the Outer Banks, and I'm sure with other beach economies, they're usually tourist-driven economies, you know? And so, like, the Outer Banks has about 30,000 residents in the off-season, you know, when it's not summertime. When it is summertime, we go up to 300,000 residents.
What? 10 times as big.
Exactly.
So it doesn't matter if the houses get destroyed because they have a whole 9 months basically to rebuild it before the other 90% of the population comes back.
All of the construction companies on the Outer Banks, they do most of their work in the off season because during the summertime they can't get anywhere on the islands because it's really cluttered. You know, the traffic is always horrible, and 2, everyone's in their house so they can't do any work. You know.
Wow.
But that's pretty much why they keep rebuilding it. That's one of the reasons.
That being said, the Outer Banks is a beautiful place.
It's the most beautiful place in the world.
Yeah. Do you guys hear that there are actually a few more hurricanes forming in the Atlantic?
Yeah, Hurricane Jose. But I hear
Barely heard anything about it.
I hear it'll probably die out before it gets close to us.
Mhm.
I think they said it's gonna get to like a Category 1 in the Atlantic and then it'll die out.
Oh.
But that's just like
It's
You
just
know.
a little scary because we have like a lot of flooding in Texas, like historically speaking, and then like there's some of the strongest winds we've ever seen on this planet in recorded history. There is an earthquake in Mexico that was like an 8, like really strong.
wow.
And there are a couple more storms forming as we speak. What the hell's going on?
I think
Go ahead.
I think it's just like the further things get out of balance, the more you'll see just like wider fluctuations. Just as like a general visualization for basically anything, I like to think of things as like sine waves. Like there's peaks and crests. And so the hurricane season, like in the summer, I'd say right now is definitely towards like the peak or whatever. Or like there's just like peaks and crests of basically like every situation. And as our environmental situation gets more and more unbalanced, it just gets worse and worse. Like right now, humans, as far as like organic organisms go, I guess that's redundant, but whatever. There's like, humans are like 98% of the space on the Earth or something. Like we take up all the space. But we're only one species, really. Or maybe several. I guess maybe people argue that, but like, whatever. Humans take up all the space, which is not how it was like intended. So, and then most of the space we take up is used for animals that we're going to eat. So it's a really like messed up system of just like how everything is imbalanced, and you could have 17 million TreeHouse live episodes about just all the effects of that. But I think from my perspective that's kind of the gist. It's just as the imbalances get more extreme, so will the effects we see from that.
Oh, most definitely. I think from a scientific point of view, it's global warming. You know? It's just our Earth is reaching to a point where, you know, it's getting harder and harder to take care of itself, and we as the human species are like the main impact of making our planet worse. You know, the list goes on, fossil fuels, you know, lots of things. But I would say that's probably going to be the tall tale sign of why everything is going down.
That kind of brings up an interesting point, which I guess you could say is both scientific and political, which is like, in this day and age, there's a lot of people who are like deniers about certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's ongoing arguments about each one, like vaccines, for instance, or like climate change has been a big one the past 5 to 10 years. But it's getting to the point where like over 97% of scientists acknowledge that climate change is real. Like, at what point is it just like a fact and you're just wrong if you think that it's not real? Like, it doesn't matter if you think it's not real. It's still happening.
It might already be a fact, in my opinion.
I mean, I would say it's measured. We have like a certain amount of recorded history to work off of, and
Mm-hmm.
like,
It's true.
if there's not better information, then you can't really make a case against it.
Well, that's a pretty good segue, and I think there are plenty of people as well as like nations in the world that like are trying to make a difference. For instance, China is looking to ban all vehicles that use diesel fuel or petrol.
Well, good for them, man. I mean, maybe since China's doing it, maybe now the USA will be like, okay, since they're doing this, we got to be the better country because that's the country we are.
Yeah.
We just have the mindset of we have to be better than everyone else. So that's kind of a crappy way to like start doing a ban on petrol and diesel fuel vehicles. But hey, at least we might do it.
Oh
You know?
my gosh. Remember what Donald Trump and the Paris Agreement?
Uh-uh.
So it's like this landmark climate change agreement that happened not that long ago when Obama was in office. Or maybe it was actually when Bush was in office. I don't remember when it started. I don't know if it was when Obama was in office. But I know Obama at least participated in this. But like, it was a huge deal because it was the first time in like the history of the world that basically every country was like, this is a problem and we're going to do something about it. And then Donald Trump just totally misjudged the weight of what that was. And I don't remember, did he like...
He pulled out of it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but I didn't want to say that unless that's actually what happened. I'm pretty sure that's what he did.
I think he just, he's like, he pulled out of it because like the budget or whatever.
Even though that
Well,
takes up basically no money.
but it's okay. We can spend it on war because that's so important, right?
Yeah.
No.
You know, I read something where Tesla, no, Elon Musk, did I pronounce his name right?
Yeah.
He, I think he designed like solar panels, kind of like shingles on top of a house.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like completely inexpensive.
Yeah, I'm trying to get some.
Yeah, you know, it's just like why are people so timid against going to that?
I don't know. It's you go.
I think it's because right now the average human doesn't see like the immediate result. So they don't want to invest money on something that they don't know they're going to get an immediate result. Even though there have been like studies and research that solar panels will save energy and it's clean, efficient, but the average human is like they don't want to spend thousands of dollars or however much it is to get solar panels on your house because they themselves have never seen like an immediate good result from it. You know what I mean?
I don't remember exactly how expensive it is, but I think that's why he's trying to make it really inexpensive, is because he wants to make that difference. And it's like, it's basically better in every way, and I think people in our area especially can relate to what I'm about to say, which is that like, we don't have an option of where to get our power from. It's crazy. It's a legal monopoly. We have to get power from Duke Energy. And they are like not really a fun company to deal with.
No, definitely not.
And like, I don't like it. this is America, supposedly a capitalist system, and I have to get my power from one place. So if someone's coming around saying, you can put this on top of your house for not that much money, and you won't have to deal with these people again, give them another penny. Yeah, I'm going to do that as fast as I can, so who do you think is spending all this money trying to make that not seem like a good option? The companies that already have the money.
That's true, though.
It's the same thing with cars, too. Back in like the 60s or 70s, actually, is when the first patent for electric cars, fully electric cars, were made. And one of the huge car companies bought it and never started using it.
Oh, I see.
Because,
we still don't see that many electric car, eco-friendly cars out there.
but one of the big ones, the Tesla.
The Tesla.
But unlike the solar panels, I'm pretty sure the Tesla is an expensive car.
Yeah,
But
it's
I mean,
sure
it,
to go down.
yeah, it's sure to go down. It has to, because eventually they're going to come out with the next Tesla.
Mhm.
That'll be even better.
I heard that vehicle has lane correction. You can just not hold onto the wheel if you're on the highway, and it has like radar sensors that knows where
Oh my gosh.
where
dude.
the lanes are, and so you can just like drive.
Can you imagine you have to go on like a business trip and you just get in your car and you can do work the whole time and you're by yourself?
Yeah, and like you don't have
Can
to.
you imagine, dude?
And-
Can you imagine how much work you would get?
That'd be like Mozart in the carriage.
That'd be like Mozart in the carriage. Like seriously, dude. Like if you have to go to a rehearsal from a musician standpoint, if you have to go to a rehearsal where they're gonna rehearse your music, you can finish your piece like on the way to the rehearsal. If it's like 4 or 5 hours away, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my gosh.
and then
good.
same thing for like the businessman. If they got to come up with a business proposal, you know, they have 2-3 hours, however far the drive is, to do it on their laptop or to make a poster or whatever they have to do. You know, and gosh,
Yeah.
that's gonna be crazy. That's gonna be crazy,
With
dude.
cruise control and everything, you don't even need to like touch anything. You know what I mean?
That's true.
So how soon do you think it's going to be before not only does it have lane correction, but it can see the speed limit sign and
correct
changes
yourself.
speed?
That is so crazy.
That
Because
is
that's not
probably
even that
far
different.
off. That's
That's
probably,
like
they can easily do that
the
with
next
like a
step.
GPS satellite thing.
Yes. I believe they could do that or they can do that with the GPS. I mean, because, you know, when you're with the Garmin, it'll show you how fast the speed limit is.
Uh-huh.
And, like, as soon as I've done it before. As soon as you pass the speed limit sign, it'll change.
Yeah.
And I think that is so weird, dude. That to me is, like, that's crazy.
What's really great is we're talking about how many years before it like becomes something like crazy. You know, this is the 10th anniversary of the iPhone. The iPhone came out just 10 years ago, and now it's pretty incredible. I think.
Do we all have iPhones here?
I
Yeah.
think we do.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. We're using an iPhone to shoot this video right now.
You know, I watched a video yesterday on this actually, how life was before the iPhone. I think it was 2007. I can't remember. It was January, I think, in 2007. Is when the first iPhone came out. When Steve Jobs announced the iPhone, and before then, the only telephone, or I think the leading telephone was like some Nokia phone. I can't remember exactly.
Was it the Razor? It was the Razor.
I
wasn't
had a
it?
Razor, dude.
I wanted a
My
Razor.
brother had a Razor.
But
Everyone thought that was a cool phone.
he was saying like before the iPhone, the smartest phone was like the BlackBerry.
Oh.
And the style of the keyboard for people who needed to like send emails all the time, businessmen and things like that. And so when Steve Jobs came up with the full touchscreen model, then the cell phone completely changed. Now everyone has a smartphone that is a touchscreen model that is like after the iPhone. You know?
It's inconvenient to try and get a non-touchscreen phone now.
It is.
It's literally less convenient to get a phone that doesn't have a touchscreen.
And now with the 10th anniversary coming up, Apple is making this iPhone that is going to be like a culmination of all the previous iPhones.
Isn't that what all of them kind of
It's true.
are?
I mean, yeah, it is. It is.
Come
but,
on, Apple.
But like with the 10th anniversary, I'm excited to see
Oh, I'm definitely excited.
What's gonna happen? I haven't read anything about the new iPhone, so I don't know like any new stuff that's gonna come out on it.
I can't believe it's already been 10 years.
Yeah. It's really cool to think about like how the first one looked compared to all the other cell phones that existed. I just wonder like how did it come to him? You know what I mean? It's such a different, idea
Yeah.
for a phone.
People probably thought he was crazy.
Yeah, dude. It's probably just alien-like.
Well, maybe at that point they weren't going to call Steve Jobs crazy because he was probably already a billionaire.
He liked ham and pineapple in his pizza, dude.
Oh, yeah, I think that's crazy.
Does pineapple go on pizza?
I don't like it.
Ricky says no.
See, that's where you're wrong. Steve Jobs likes it.
I'll eat pineapple on pizza.
I think it's safe to say I'm not Steve Jobs.
Dr. Salmon, John Salmon, when I was taking lessons with him,
Uh-huh.
he would always say like, "Put some ham and pineapple on your pizza." Like when I'm like practicing or playing jazz piano, he's like, "Man, you have too much pepperoni and cheese. Like put some ham and pineapple on it." Meaning for the non-musicians, meaning like make it hip, make it different. You know, it's like because when the first person put ham and pineapple on their pizza, everyone's probably like, "Man, you are crazy. Why would you put ham and pineapple on your pizza?" But he kept doing it, and then other people followed, and they're like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And then now, look at it. It's like
Hawaiian pizza.
Hawaiian pizza, one of the hippest pizza styles ever. You know
They're
what I'm
probably
saying?
reaching for the sausage and a jar of pineapple just fell on it.
An accident.
But I
could
think,
be right.
I
you know,
mean, oh sorry.
we would talk about the iPhone a good amount, and like every year, when they announce the next one, it's such a big event.
Yep.
And I actually saw something on the internet. You could binge watch all the announcements and kind of see the evolution of it.
Mm.
So
That's funny.
binge watching is something that's pretty new to our generation. What do
Mhm.
you guys think about it? The pros and cons is what I want to know.
It's I think for the past 2 years at least, it has officially been classified as something that is like a valid addiction. Like you can be legitimately addicted to binge watching, just like caffeine, alcohol,
Binge
any
drinking.
kind of drugs. Yeah. Binge drinking, yeah.
Even if you're watching the most educated documentary or whatever, binge watching, it is taking away from your physical productivity. You know what I mean? You might be feeding your mental ideas, maybe, depending on what you watch, but you're not actually doing what you're thinking. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because you're binge watching. It's different when you're like, you watch something and then you apply it to whatever you're trying to do. But binge watching, like you said, it could become a really bad addiction.
Well, let me play devil's advocate a little because I want to agree with you, but on the other hand, like, what if you discover something new, and for the sake of just a good argument, let's say it is something valuable in terms of educating yourself or something,
Okay.
and you have to, we don't have to obviously, but like, you just have to binge watch it because you want to absorb all that information, and then like whenever after that you will be ready to apply it. Like, do you think binge watching something can have a good place? Or like on Netflix now, especially with Netflix original series, it's kind of funny because you get a notification on Netflix, but anyway, they'll like, your new show comes out or whatever. Is it better to just on one Saturday night just watch the show, just watch the new season of the show, just spend 4 or 5 hours, you just watch the show? Or would it be worse to like, I'm gonna once a week or once a day, I'm gonna sit down and watch my show? Like, what's better, what's worse, you know?
I think that would actually be an interesting research study to get the scientists involved and psychologists, behavioral psychologists involved, and look at your brain before binge watching and after binge watching and see levels of chemicals or whatever, or a survey that asks how a pre-survey asking like how you feel, like if you're happy, if you're sad, and then a post survey if you're happier or if you're sadder, more sad, you know.
Or just giving them some kind of like brain teaser challenge.
Yeah.
Like after each episode, or like maybe do different amounts, or just be like after they watch however long, give them the puzzle and just compare how they do to people who didn't watch any to people who, you know.
So behavioral scientists and psychologists out there, do this study.
Get on it.
I think what's funny is there's a like real term for being kind of upset after you're done with the show, called a show hole.
A show
like,
hole?
You've spent so much time focusing on something, and then like once you're done with the show, like you just got, it's sad. You got like it's gone.
You're like,
you just don't know what to do.
You know, that brings up a very good point of maybe binge watching is unhealthy, like just period unhealthy, because like you said, you have you have a show hole, so now you need to fill it with another show. That's just like drugs almost. When you finish,
I mean, not even. It is
if
like
when
that.
you like when you finish your drugs, you don't have any more. You gotta get more drugs. You know what I mean? Or if you're an alcoholic, if you ran out of beer or alcohol, you gotta get more alcohol to fill that void. You know? So, I think, right, since binge watching is such a new, relatively new thing, we'll have to probably wait like 10, 15 years before we see any repercussions of it.
I guess you can't deny the ingenuity of it from a business standpoint.
Oh no, of course, it's genius.
But for things like drinking, there's like a medical limit or like threshold or whatever, where it does become binge drinking after this amount of drinks over this amount of time. In your opinion, from the both of you, like what constitutes binge watching something? How many episodes over how much long?
Well, see, that's why I said I don't think it's such a new thing. Binge watching is a relatively new thing that we haven't had much study to find these like levels of like when it actually starts to affect your brain in a negative way or your bodily functions, you know.
And like, is it 3 episodes? Is it 4 episodes? Is it 2 hours? Is it 3 hours? Like, it's just like one of those things where I think like for instance, just for the sake of a relatable example for most people, like alcoholism, like some people just have different lines of like what's too much for their particular body, their experience. So like, even if that line is drawn, there's going to be people that could be over the line and be fine, or people that aren't even close to the line and like really just need to get off of Netflix, you know. Like some people really just can't have only one drink, you know. But some people can have like 4 or 5 in one night and be fine to consistently make clear, conscious decisions about what they're going to do and not let that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's tricky to draw that line for the whole population, you know, no matter what it is.
Yes.
So it seemed like with binge watching, there's a lot of negative things. And then that kind of ties into binge listening, as in, you know, I think Spotify is on the streaming service for a different product, though, music.
Mm-hmm.
Pros and cons of that, gentlemen.
You go ahead, Jacob.
Well, especially lately, I've just been like, so I have a cassette player in my car, and it's one of those, I have the little thing that has like the line thing, so I can put it in my phone or whatever and listen to whatever I want through my cassette player. But that broke down to only one channel, so now I just kind of drive in silence most of the time, and I just like my environment to be really quiet a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's nice.
And it's just like,
Especially when you're...
I don't like music to be playing if I don't want to listen to it. And like, there's a lot of music, especially when I hang out with a lot of other people and they're playing music and they're not listening to it. For me, if that's like what I'm doing, it might as well just be like an air conditioner blasting in my ear or something. If I'm not like trying to listen to it, so it's just like that's just like where I've gotten to in my experience lately. But like as far as like I don't know, I like Spotify for my own personal use because I can access things very quickly when I want to listen to it. But especially as an artist, I have a moral obligation kind of not to use it, even though I am using it, because like you want to support artists however you can, especially if you're enjoying the service that they've provided you. But also at the same time, I think most of the artists consent to being on Spotify too, so it's like give and take. I don't know, what are your thoughts, Andrew?
With binge listening, I think that's hard to say if like binge listening is the thing, because if you take the average person who's not a musician, you know, what is their binge listening versus a musician binge listening, you know? Because I can imagine, because the average listener doesn't really listen to the music, you know what I mean? It's more of like a,
There's definitely different levels.
yeah, it's more of a like soundscape filler, or I could just say soundscape. It's more of a soundscape as opposed to active listening to it. But, you know, on the other hand, the average listener, they do like actively listen to songs at times, you know, but not as much as artists or musicians do. And so, I don't know, I guess you could say like binge listening for musicians is almost like studying, because we have to study music, you know, whereas like with a businessman, would you call him putting up business proposals and business models binge business proposing?
Or binge stock marketing.
You know,
or
yeah,
something.
because that's
being
what-
at the stock market
that's what he
8 to 5 or whatever.
Yeah, that's what he or she has to do, you know, to be successful in their career. Whereas musicians, we have to binge listen.
Well, does the same thing apply to binge watching? Let's say if like a director, a filmmaker, if he binge watches a show, you know, is that binge watching to him? You
Or
know
to
what I mean?
study. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, but you also mentioned that when you're spending so much time watching something, you can't really be doing it physically. So can the same thing be applied to musicians if they're just listening to album after album instead of just really listening to one, soaking it up, and then like applying it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
This is bringing up some cool points.
I think it's very dependent on the musician, because, you know, everyone has a different attention span.
Yeah.
And so some musicians can only they have a hard time getting through one album, like sitting down and actively listening to the one album.
That's true.
But then there are other musicians that they can sit down and listen to 3 or 4 albums with no problem at all.
Or listen to an entire symphony and be like, wow, that was great. I'm going to listen to the next symphony this guy wrote right now.
Exactly. So it's all very subjective.
Sorry about that. I think if I could share my own opinion on this,
Please.
you know, I have an easier time listening to music if I'm listening to one of my records from my vinyl collection. Because let's say I have like maybe 60 or 80 records, and I find it a lot easier just to go through and pick one out that I want to listen to, and then like just do it. On my phone though, I have like way more, like twice
Yeah.
as much. It's just like, what the hell do I want to listen to? And then sometimes I'll start something and it's like, let me actually start listening to this other thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's it brings up the point of kind of like what Jacob was touching on a little bit earlier about supporting musicians and how Spotify kind of doesn't do that.
0.2 cents
Point-
or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So having the vinyl or the CD, when you buy it, or someone gives it to you, or however you get in possession of it, you feel like it's yours. So you feel a very personal connection to it. So someone could be like, "Hey, have you heard that Dexter Gordon album? Or have you heard that Duke album, Ella at Duke's Place?" And
Episode 1 if you haven't seen it.
and if you have it, you know, or like if you've listened to it and you have it, you're like, "Yeah, man, I love that album. That's one of my favorite albums," because it's like it's yours because you have it.
Yeah.
you know, and particularly with vinyl, it's like our generation, I've noticed, is bringing back the vinyl.
Yeah.
It's particularly our generation, and it brings up the point, like, because when, like you were saying, when you want to listen to the vinyl, you have to get up, you have to search for the vinyl through your records, pick it out, carefully place it on the player, and then sit down and
Drop
listen
the
to
needle,
it.
yeah.
And drop the needle and sit down and listen to it. So it's like the entire time you're like touching and being very intimate with it.
Right.
So you have a very close connection to it.
Another cool thing about vinyls is that when the volume's all the way down, if you listen really closely, you can still hear it coming directly off of the grooves. So all it does, the music is on that thing. It's on this physical object. It is a physical. It's a physical record
Yeah.
of what happened somewhere else, just in the form of audio. And so all the record player does is it takes that sound that's only happening because it's spinning and touching the needle, and just making it louder.
Mhm.
And so this morning, actually, after I made some breakfast, I was listening to this free record I got from the music library over the summer, and it has some
Which one?
Debussy.
Oh
on it.
my gosh.
I know, I have so many to get through now. It was, I gotta tell you, it was really nice just sitting in my living room. I could choose out of my records, but it's not like, oh, I want to listen to Debussy, and then I go into Spotify and look at my phone, and it's like, I'm looking at like Claire de Lune, a couple of other pieces I know, and then a billion that I don't know. And then it's like,
It's overwhelming.
what do you pick? Like, I don't know what any of them are. But this classical pianist, whose name I can't pronounce, he picked out like 6 preludes for me or whatever. So it's like, he probably chose good ones. And it's just on his record that, I got it probably used from the music library, but at one point, someone bought it, which gave money to the record company who had already paid him through a pre-existing contract. So that seems more fair, because in theory, the musician would make a deal that would have them fairly compensated.
Mm-hmm.
I like that you use the word intimate, because we're like in the digital age now, and I find that a lot of people our age are like they're looking for like that intimacy and things, you know.
Yeah.
And you can't find it, you know, on the internet or on social media or binge watching Netflix. You know what I mean?
And
It's through your innate human senses, and so with records, you can touch it, you can hear it, you can see it, you know, you could smell it. You know, it's got like all those things.
yeah, and the thing is, our generation doesn't know that they're looking for it.
That's true.
You know, like it's like there's this hole. You know, they're looking for this intimate or close connection with anything in the world, but because everything is in here, it like devalues everything, because everything is in here, everything, all of the internet, because everything's on the internet.
Just a tiny little computer.
Exactly. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's cool. We've made crazy strides as a human race because of the internet. But at the same time, we're also diminishing certain values of humanity.
See, it's kind of like that sine wave, though. We started in the crest, and now we're getting towards a peak of sorts with the internet, and things are kind of out of balance. Like, there's wild pros and wild cons, and now we got to kind of settle back down with all the stuff we've learned. But you know what it reminded me of, which kind of does tie into waves too, is that lecture we attended last Thursday. Which, do you remember that guy's name?
Todd Titon, I think.
We'll put something about him in the description. But his whole lecture was basically about approaching the world from a perspective based in sound. And how I want to tie this into this is because when you think of it very literally, when I'm talking right now, for instance, vibrations are coming from me and going to anyone who's listening and is touching them in the ears. So in that vibrational sense, well, in that vibrational sense, like there's literally no space in between us. Like we are physically connected by the waves. Like, and from that, the way
beautiful, dude.
through his lecture, he illustrated a world that could be so cooperative, just on a world based
On
off
sound.
of the sound perspective.
Sound connection.
What do you remember from that lecture?
One thing that really got to me that like, kind of blew my mind was he said every animal species in the world, most animal species in the world, they communicate with sound. They communicate like mating calls, territorial lines, territorial boundaries, predation, parent-offspring communication,
pollination,
sonication, and that's like almost every animal communicates that way, and we as humans don't. We don't take that advantage. We don't use sound to have a connection with other human beings, which brings up. I think we're coming closer and closer to a point where music, particularly music in the sense of art, is going to come back. Is going to come alive again, very soon. I think.
I think it's already started.
It's starting,
I
yeah.
think when people go back and draw the line, they will draw it before right now.
Yeah, and this song, like with the LPs, that's already a small sign that we're getting closer to like the intimate side of music, as opposed to just like the creating a soundscape while you're doing work.
There are some people, and it's getting a little out there. There's some people that believe that, with the whole Mayan calendar thing ending in 2012, and some people took it as the end of the world, but a lot of people took it as just kind of shift in a lot of things.
Yeah.
Or just in Earth.
One thing I've read about that, and I'm not, disclaimer, I am not at all saying that this is a fact. I'm just saying that I have read this, and it's interesting to think about. So, I've heard that people thought that the Mayan calendar, what it actually signified, was the end of something called the Procession of the Equinox, which is, so everything just has cycles. There's all kind of galactic cycles, like a day is a cycle, a year is a cycle, so it's just like bigger and bigger cycles. And what the Procession of the Equinox is essentially a year for like the entire galaxy, basically. And how it relates to us is like our little solar system is like revolving around the whole thing, and the Procession of the Equinox, which is like some absurdly long amount of time, like hundreds of thousands of years, somehow at that point it just reaches like when it's like completed another cycle.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one thought. So what a lot of people were saying was that point, like you were saying, was just a huge shift. It's just like the end of one age and the beginning of another age.
Yeah.
And I'm not a huge astrology person or anything, but people do say it is the beginning of the age of Aquarius, whatever
Okay.
you want to make of that personally. So,
Interesting. Well, I don't know. Like, it's too early. 2012 was 5 years ago.
oh my gosh, that's
And
crazy.
and so we still have at least 20 years before we see any like immediate
Bigger
results
changes, yeah.
from it. But you can definitely feel it.
Things I feel things feel different every single day to me, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I think things over the past like 5 or 10 years, and maybe it's just me, but I think things seem lighter, like more shiny.
Yeah, I
Like
see what you're saying.
maybe that sounds silly or something. But
No,
it's something I'm kind of noticing.
It's like uplifting. Things feel more uplifted.
It's like when I go outside now, like if I went outside right now and just looked at all the plants, they look more vibrant to me somehow than if I looked at them 10 years ago.
No, I'm telling you, man. I just 3 years ago is when I started noticing like sunsets and stuff, and they're like starting to get just magnificent. I don't remember ever being like 10 and looking at the sunset thinking like how beautiful it looked. But now it's like it's unbelievable like what's happening in the sky.
That could be, there's many variables to that. One, you're growing up.
Yeah.
So you're noticing more things in your environment. Two, you could have a change of location to where the sunset is easier to see or
Just different.
Different. So there's many variables to that. Because like when I was 10, going to like the location thing, I've lived on the Outer Banks my entire life. And I can see the sunset or the sunrise every morning off the ocean, and I can see the sunset every evening off the Sound. And when I was like 10 years old, I found it just as beautiful as when I look at it now, I mean, now I have a little bit more appreciation for it just because of how much older I am and how much more I know about the world and its workings. But there's just so many variables to consider, We don't know if, like I said, it's too early in the game to see if the Procession of the Equinox or 2012 is like a real thing.
The other thing about the Procession of the Equinox, or like even a year, the funny thing about it is it's kind of like, yeah, I guess that's like the start of a cycle, but like the only reason that it's the start is because it's the start of when someone noticed it at the first time. Like how is any point of a perfect cycle the beginning? If that makes sense.
Right.
If it's an infinite cycle, like what's the beginning of the water cycle?
Right.
Chicken or the egg?
Exactly.
I'm just curious. We were all together on New Year's, right?
Yeah, we were.
Were we at my house when the countdown happened?
No, we were.
Yeah, because it was the big band thing.
It wasn't at your house. It was at the.
We were all at
PB and
and
Java.
Java,
Yeah.
and then afterwards we went back to our place. Yeah.
I just can't believe it's like September already.
Yeah.
Time is just weird.
Yeah.
Speaking of time,
Mhm.
I believe it was Papa John's or Domino's that they're trying to do drone delivery systems for your pizza. Imagine how much time that will save.
Man.
What do you think?
Jacob, you started off.
Okay, because here's my thing about this, and I know I've kind of done this with several topics, but you want me to go here, and I'm going to go here. But
Yeah.
so the thing about I'm all about it. I think that's a great idea. As someone who's been a delivery driver, at 2 different places, I had to think about it for a second. That's a stupid job. I mean, it's probably like the job that has the most employee turnover, and do you know why? Because people get that job because they just need a job, and then when they're tired of doing it, they just quit, and any person can do it. Any person with a car or a bike, if you want to work at Jimmy John's. So drones are going to be killing. You don't have to tip it. Everybody wins. But the thing that brings up is at what point are we going to stop believing in the fallacy that you have to work to get anything? Because as technology gets better, we should be doing less work. That's how it is supposed to work.
Mhm.
So like, I know people are going to be like, oh, but that's going to take away jobs from people. Well, do you want to deliver pizzas? I didn't think that you wanted to deliver pizzas.
Well, how about, how are people going to not necessarily earn their money, but who's going to say this person earns this much and who earns that much? So it gets kind of political.
Definitely, for sure. And those are things we have to sort through. But I mean, they're already testing out basic income in other places, and I'm sure they'll sort out the checks and balances of whatever needs to happen for that. But I mean, honestly, we already have the resources for everyone to be fine. It's just mismanaged terribly. And so it's just like, it's just a balance that needs to be found. Like, we're not here to work. We're
That's
here
true.
to just experience stuff. So it's just like, why would anyone want to believe in a world where everyone has to work? Because if you just imagine a dream world, then you wouldn't imagine a dream world where everyone works a job so that everyone has a fair life. You would imagine a world where you don't have to do anything. And like, that would be awesome if technology could do basically everything for you. Or we just always had enough food because we know how that cycle works and we can build stuff that takes advantage of it without ruining it for the next cycle. Like, we have the technology, we have the resources, we're just idiots that are obsessed with money.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't, money, the funniest thing is that money is just the symbol for resources.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even the resource itself. And everyone's trying to get the thing that symbolizes a resource instead of just getting the resource or improving the resource. I don't
Yeah.
know. Tangent.
I mean,
It's-
if we all collect the same amount of money, like if we all made this, every individual made the same amount of money, and all the robots did all the work, and that would make like traveling super, inexpensive and things like that. Like, technically, wouldn't we all be rich?
Let's just start listing all the jobs a robot could do. Any kind of pilot or transportation, which
Food
includes
delivery.
delivery driver.
Clean your house, just clean shit.
Accounting.
Accounting.
What else? Serving restaurants, robot could do that. At least
Yeah.
that like fast casual style. Maybe it wouldn't be great to get rid of the server just yet because that's a nice experience
Yeah.
to
that's
interact
true.
with a person.
Well, then, what's funny? It kind of ties into the whole intimacy thing that we're talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting, Jacob, that you say this utopia where nobody works.
I did not use the word utopia.
You said dream world, which is a
Okay.
utopia.
Fair enough.
Now,
Stand corrected.
we as humans, because we work, we feel rewarded when we are done with work. We feel good because you feel productive. We are done with, I finished this work. Even if you hate the work, you hate the job, you stood through it and you did it. Yeah. you stood through it, you did it, and you get a small sense of pride almost, because you're like, I hate this job, but I still got up and did it and made my money's worth or whatever. But in a world where we don't work, I think humans would become very not sociable.
I disagree.
You think so?
You know what's crazy? And this is exactly how this whole episode ties into each other. Robots do all the work. Well, you see, like, the evolution of the iPhone into robots. Robots do all the work. Humans don't have to work. Humans begin binge watching. Humans turn into the humans in WALL-E. Just sit around and binge watch.
And look how social they are.
Not very.
Not at all.
It's funny because they'll be like on their floating chairs, like right next to each other, but they're not looking at each other. They're looking at the screen of the other person.
Wow. Like FaceTime?
Yeah, when they're right next to you. And that's what I mean about it takes away the social aspect. Because when you're put into a working society, you are put, like the person, you don't have a choice. I guess you do, you can quit your job. But you don't have a choice to whether you want to work with this person or not. So it forces you as a human to be able to work with a stranger and communicate with a stranger and how to have a good relationship with a stranger. If you didn't have that working society, we would all be hanging out with people that we are already comfortable hanging out with.
Yeah, but what's wrong with that?
Then you're limiting yourself as a human. You're limiting yourself from learning how to interact with strangers and other people and how to interact and how to handle other situations.
Okay, let me ask you this then. What would you say your occupation is?
My occupation? I'm a musician.
So if you didn't have to make a cent, do you think you'd stop playing music?
No.
Would you stop playing music for other people?
No. That's
Is
different.
music social?
Yes. Because music is an artistic thing. But
And
I'm saying,
strangers would come hear you play, I'm sure.
of course, but not everyone is a musician.
But people who are not musicians would still come to hear a musician play.
Yes, but they're not necessarily interacting like with me. They're just coming to see my show.
And also, there have been declines in people going out to see music because you could just watch something on YouTube.
And you could live stream it.
Exactly.
You know.
Oh, that's right. Open invitation for all the fans to come and watch the show live. TheTreeHouse Live.
And that concludes the show today for the Treehouse Live. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Andrew Sanchez. This is
Jacob Bruner
Thank you so much, and we will see you again next week
coming at you live
from
at 11 a.m.
the Treehouse.
live.
We'll see you next week. Thank you.